Franklin said when he went to England, they said, how do you get the money to build your poorhouses? He said, we don't have poorhouses in the colonies. If we did have, there wouldn't be anyone to put in them. And the Bank of England found out about that, and they said that the colonies could no longer use their own money. They had to use the money from the Bank of England. In Franklin's autobiography, he said 1 year from the date they passed that law, our streets were filled with the unemployed because we made our own money and we spent it into circulation. What we've got now, we never have enough money to buy, to pay off the debt and the interest, because everything out there is debt. And the interest keeps growing, but they don't create the interest. Well, and nobody ever, I thought maybe somebody down here would attack that problem. I was hoping. But, I feel helpless here, because if we did that, there wouldn't be any need. Our country's paying interest on its own credit. When Franklin went over there, he said, how come you got so many tramps around here? And they said, because we got too many workers. He said, no, you don't. You got too little credit. That's the big problem. And we've saved millions of dollars on interest with Lincoln's own greenbacks.
Well,
nobody understands it, do they?
Well, no, I hear you, but I don't agree with you. I think Lincoln's greenbacks were a disaster. They depreciated by 2/3.
Our money's never been backed by gold. It was only 25% back. No, it was 40% back in 1913. That means it was 60% backed by nothing. Then they lowered that to in 1950 to 25%.
That's right. The 40% gold cover. The 40% gold cover came in with the Federal Reserve, which is, yeah. If it were up to me, I'd do away with the Federal Reserve.
Oh yeah. Well, that's kind of, if you do away with the Federal Reserve, you still got the fractional reserve banking.
Of course, there's a lot of other things to do.
Which is a fraud in itself.
A whole lot of things you have to do, but I definitely get rid of the Fed. When you think of it, it's hard to come up with another agency of government that has more fully failed its.
It's not an agency.
It's not an agency of
well,
government.
A creation of the government, although they handed it over to substantially private interest.
Right.
But it was an act of Congress that created it. But all the years that we've had the Fed, you've had from the beginning and later added these promises. We've got to have it because it will preserve the value of the currency. It'll print just the right amount. It'll make sure we have enough money. It'll provide for full employment. It'll iron out the business cycle. All these things, but look what we've had. We've had one Great Depression and 10 or 11 or 12 recessions since the Fed was created, and we have a dollar that's worth about a nickel of its 1913 value. It's hard to say that, boy, that's a job well done. They've been a disaster, and they are at the root of the current crisis, too.
What do you think Cleveland would say about Obama's mandatory national service? His ideas are from Emmanuel and...
Mandatory national service.
There's going to be a revolt in this country, and they're going to go at their hand.
Yeah, he would be horrified. I mean, he would say, where does it say that the government can, the only thing that comes close is the clause that outlaws involuntary servitude.
Yeah.
There's nothing in there that suggests that government can force you into some national service. I mean, no, that's, I think you can make a case that's somewhat believable in times of national emergency, wartime or something, but this business of drafting people for do stuff in the community, I mean, that's Cleveland would shake his head in disgust.
Has anyone pulled together a book or something that talks about the president said have essentially extended federal power by, going beyond what the Constitution grants the federal government? Has anybody put that together?
Boy,
Just laying it out.
I can't think.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, I can't think of one that does it that narrowly, that says, looks at presidents and how they expanded. I can think of big chunks of other books that do that, but don't cover every president. One by Robert Higgs, Leviathan is the title. I can't remember the full title, but Leviathan is in the title, and the author is Higgs, H-I-G-G-S. Crisis and Leviathan, that's right. And he talks a lot about how governments over multiple presidents have taken crises and used them as an excuse to expand.
expand.
Yeah. He doesn't go all the way back, but
The ratchet effect?
What's that?
The
The ratchet effect, yeah, and then after the crisis is over, they never ratchet back down to what they were before,
Right,
that's
right.
part of it.
Never done.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that in that book.
Yeah, if you give it to them, they won't give it back. Whatever you give the government, they don't give back.
No, that's right. I'm working on a piece now about parallels in what we see in America today, in government in particular, with events in ancient Rome. And I think tonight I saw somebody actually brought an old version of that I did years ago, but I found some interesting new stuff, new to me, not the history, but in 33 AD, tell me if this sounds familiar, there was a financial panic in Rome, and the Roman government responded with a massive extension of zero-interest loans across the economy, which then became the excuse for further interventions. By 91 AD, you have them in agriculture, destroying crops in order to raise prices. Does that sound familiar? And beginning the process under Nero in around 55, 60 AD of taking the Roman coin, which was 94% silver at the time of Augustus, half a century before, calling them in, melting them down into, and having a bigger mass of molten metal. They throw in junk metals and have more molten mass to make a lot more coins, so the silver content fell until by Emperor Aurelian, 274 AD, silver content of the Roman coin had fallen to 0.02% silver. 2/100ths of a percent silver. Just enough for them to say there's something in there. The rest was all junk metals. They spent like drunken sailors. And anyway, there are a lot of interesting parallels. I don't want you to think, by the way, that there's any reason to be pessimistic. In fact, depending on the time, I should end with maybe some words of optimism. How are we on time? Yeah,
It's up to you, sir.
good time to do that. I perfectly understand that you look around today and you have to wonder, gee, are we kissing our civilization goodbye here? Things are pretty dire by almost any standard. And I think, this is another topic for another time, but I think the core problem in this country today is not so much the economic stuff. It's not the debts and the deficit. Those are horrendous, but they're also symptoms. They're what you get if you've got this other problem first that's even bigger. And that problem is an erosion of character.
Erosion of what?
Character. This is, all this stuff you see in Washington is the result of the people in Congress and beyond who have lost their moral compass, who think that the role of government is to, do whatever it takes to get by for the moment, to win the next election, please this or that constituency, whatever. It isn't just Congress, it's a lot of folks back home who put them in there and keep putting them in there and aren't willing to stand up on behalf of the fundamental values that made America great. And I just see this over and over again, this erosion of character. What are some of the traits of character that you would expect to see in a person, and therefore by extension a country, of strong character? Grover Cleveland had them in spades. Honesty, absolutely. Honesty in all your dealings, big and small. If you're a Christian, you will appreciate Luke 16:10, which warns that if you're dishonest in small matters, you will become dishonest in big ones too. Starts at the smallest, most personal level. Honesty, humility. Humility. Where is the humility? We've got people in Washington today who think they can plan an economy of $15 trillion. They know what's good for you. I mean, it's utterly preposterous. They really need to learn a little humility. That's part of the message of one of these essays I have for you tonight called I, Pencil. We're losing humility. All kinds of people think they can do things